Panel review. There we are. Oh,
here we are.
It's always good to see when people figure out the different kind of views.
We'll mute ourselves so the sound of my father drinking doesn't interfere.
Are we allowed to drink?
You're always allowed to drink.
Drink away.
Exactly.
Lovely.
Right, I guess we'll start this evening. So it's 7:05, at least on my clock. So thank you all for joining in. There's still people coming in intermittently. So as they come in, I will let them in, and they can just join into all the fun. So this has been the first event with Cigars for this year, and we decided to do something a little bit different, especially with the weather getting a little bit colder. So we thought to run through the different Primeros, which Davidoff do, which are all handmade cigars as well. And we're happy to have Sam again with us today, who's going to tell us all about it. And we'll also explain a little bit more about how different blends are created, so which we thought would be quite an interesting topic to have. I don't know if anybody from C.Gars Ltd wants to do a quick welcome word.
Yeah, welcome from everybody from Cigars. Looking at the numbers, which is fabulous, 81 people on the call. I think it's the biggest attendance that we've had so far. With lockdown 2.0 continuing, we will continue to have these virtual Herfs throughout 2021 until we're able to reopen our retail stores and do some live events. So at this stage, they're going to be running every fortnight. We skip a week with the Easter weekend, but they're all listed on the website, so please go and check them all out. A lot of exciting events coming up, so look forward to welcoming you all on future events. Thanks, Sam and Roy, for putting the event on tonight. And interested to go through the blendings, so much appreciated. Thanks, everyone.
Perfect. Can I just ask everybody to mute themselves so we don't have any background noise? That would be highly appreciated. If people have any questions, please put them in the chat box, and we'll ask them as we get to it. I think if you check the chat box now, there's a chance to win a stunning Davidoff carbon cigar case. If you share a picture of your Herf setup using the hashtags @virtualherf, @Davidoff, and tag C.Gars Ltd, and then Anthony will announce the winner this Friday. So we'll start with Sam. Sam, good evening. Thank you for joining us from Zurich.
Yes.
I hope the weather there is probably colder than here, actually.
It's 10 degrees, so it's fine.
Oh, really? Okay, it was actually better than here. Yeah, thank you for joining us again. It's a good attendance, but there's still some more people coming in. So I think there's a lot of interest in people finding out more about Primeros, and probably specifically more the blending side as well. So I think with you, we're in the right hands. So I think for people who don't know you, if you could just do a quick introduction of yourself and explain what your role is within Davidoff.
Yes, thank you, Roy, and thank you also Cigars for staging this. I'm super excited to be here again, first time in this year. So you can read my name, Sam Reuter, originally from Luxembourg, and working for the company now since almost 12 years. And so I have like several hats on, but two main one is that I'm global brand ambassador for the brand Davidoff. And also head of product innovation, meaning that I'm dealing a lot with our factories in Honduras and Dominican Republic. And you have to imagine like being the bridge between marketing, basically when there is an idea, and translating this idea into the cigar with our master blenders. So a lot of fun, and I'm super happy that we have so many attendants today.
Yeah, a lot of enthusiasts by the looks of it. As I said, normally we do a bit of a bigger size cigar, either a new release or just to feature something on which is a little bit different. But yeah, this time we decided to settle on Primeros, and we picked out the 5 different Primeros, so the Dominican Maduro, the Escudo, the Nicaragua, and the Nicaraguan Maduro. For people who want to smoke them all in this session, then we probably recommend to start with the Dominican Republic, then go on to the Dominican Maduro, then Escudo, Nicaragua, and finish with the Nicaragua Maduro. You'll find that they're all very different flavor profiles, and pick your favorite. And they come in tins of 6, so they're good to carry around, especially in this weather. They're good for a quick smoke. But can you tell us a little bit more about Primeros? What makes it different from a normal size cigar, let's say a Petit Panatella or Petit Corona, in a shorter format?
Yes. So basically, I have prepared a little presentation. It's not too long. I don't want to keep up presenting too much, but I was just thinking it's maybe better to have it visually. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Perfect. So basically, the Primeros, or like the name say, the first one, it's basically, let's call it a little cigar, maybe to enjoy first when you're new in the world of cigars, or when you don't have a lot of time to enjoy a cigar, between the bridge between then the long filler cigars. We have the first one launched in 2007 already. Important is what Roy said before, it's 100% tobacco. It's handmade. It's a medium filler. I will explain this in a minute, what this means. Basically, medium filler, short filler, or what is a long filler. The format is a Petit Panatella. It's a 34 ring gauge times 4/1/8. So it's a nice little format, perfectly for this, call it, for brief pleasure if you don't have a lot of time at your hand. Now, important, what is 100% tobacco? There are some cigars out there that are not 100% tobacco. Normally those who people say, oh, they stink. Yes, they do. It's the HTL leaf. It's a homogenized tobacco leaf composed of 80% tobacco and 20% cellulose, which is kind of glue. And then basically, so HTL we don't have in our assortment at all. And then we focus on 100% tobacco, meaning that all components are of pure tobacco. What I quickly mentioned before, what is the difference between a short filler, medium filler, and long filler? You see, short filler, typically it's called for cigarettes or for cigarillos, meaning that the entire filler is composed of tobacco cut into small pieces, right? And then you have your binder and your wrapper around. That's a typical short filler. It's also, in terms of price, a little bit lower. Combustion is also a little bit quicker than, for example, a long filler. Then medium filler, what we are today, it's for the Primeros. Basically, you have in the filler, and I have a small video that my colleague made today in the factory to show it to you later on, how this is done. So basically, in the filler, you have half a leaf and short filler tobacco. Now, this half leaf is placed basically on the binder. The short filler is put on top, and then you have the wrapper going around. Medium filler, and then long filler is basically that half or entire tobacco leaves, 100% tobacco, and no short filler at all. Those are a little bit the categories. Now, if we look at our Primeros assortment, we started with the Dominican, quickly with the Dominican Maduro. Already here you have a little difference in terms of blend, but also in terms of the color and strength. So the typical Dominican ones is 2 out of 5, which we are enjoying at the moment. And you have to imagine, so basically the question comes up like, okay, how do you blend the Primeros, or what is the aim of the cigar? And basically what you do is, I don't know, I mean, a lot of you have been to the cigar factory. When you roll a cigar, you craft a cigar, you're always cutting tobacco, and there's always a lot of tobacco that is still left on the table, that basically is collected. This tobacco is then cut into short filler, and basically out of the short filler we create a blend that is very much or very close to the long filler cigars. In this case, our white band collection, Signature, Grand Cru, Aniversario. So the typical taste of this Primeros Dominican reminds you of the long filler cigars, but at a very affordable price point. the blending is quite difficult because you have to imagine all the short filler. You have to be consistent in your taste, consistent also in the way you're rolling the cigar, that there's no holes in there. And this is quite a challenge. It's not as easy as it sounds. Now here, if you look at the tobacco composition, it's Dominican filler. You have a nice Dominican binder, and then you have this Ecuadorian Connecticut wrapper. On the Maduro, we have a slight different blend, a little bit higher in strength. As you can see, it's a 3 out of 5. And here you don't have a Connecticut wrapper, but you have a Habano Ecuador wrapper, thus explaining also the little bit more brownish color to the cigar. And then what we have basically, I would say, newly introduced since 2014 is basically when you look at our Discovery collection, those cigars carrying a black ring. So you have the Primeros by Davidoff Nicaragua, 3 out of 5 in terms of strength. So here the Primeros as a long filler cigars are composed of Nicaraguan tobacco. Again, being like a little like the counterpart to the long filler cigars, but also very nice. I always call it a nice first taste journey, what to expect in a long filler cigar. You have the Nicaragua Maduro with a more pronounced wrapper on it, a little bit also does, you know, when ring gauge is a little bit short, I mean smaller, like at 30, 34, you have a more higher participation of the wrapper, and thus if you choose the wrapper a little bit higher from the plant, it gives it this extraness of strength to it. And also beautiful, the Escurio, whereas we took the same tobaccos as our long filler cigars, the typical Matafina, Cubra tobaccos from Brazil, balanced off with Dominican tobacco and a nice Ecuadorian Habano wrapper on it. And basically, really the idea behind is blending those cigars to give you a taste of what are the long filler cigars basically tasting like. Here I just put like a little slide together. What is it? What are the advantages of it? We believe that it's affordable entry level price point to the world of Davidoff. So if you say like, okay, I'm maybe not familiar with our long filler cigars, but I want to have a glimpse at them, I want to have a small taste of them, then perfectly to start with our Primeros selection that we're going to taste hopefully all today. In terms of quality, there is the same quality than our Davidoff cigars. We have a lot of quality steps in there. We have a lot of trained cigar rollers crafting those cigars. There is nothing inferior with the quality. It's just the blending with the short filler. I mean, short filler and the half leaf in the filler that is a little bit less expensive. They're all handcrafted using premium quality tobaccos. So, as I said, the tobacco is basically the same tobacco used for the long filler cigars. What I really enjoy, or what Roy said, if it's a little bit cold outside, you have a short moments of escape for 15 minutes or less. Can also be a nice coffee break, or just like these little breaks during the day. Similar taste, I think, was also important to the long filler cigars. And also what has been often acknowledged, or what is the benefit, is this metal tin. It's easy for you to put in your pocket or your jacket and to carry with you when you're out of your home. Yes, so I promise it was not too long. I hope that you got a little overview or a little more background information about our Primeros. I'm a big fan of it, I have to say. Now working from home, you know, this 15 minutes break is always a pleasure to enjoy a nice little cigar in between.
So how did the Primeros come about? So whose idea was it, and then how did you come up with the kind of the five lines?
So basically, what Primeros are so basic. All our Primeros, we do around 2 million cigars a year. So it's quite a high number. If you looked at with the long filler cigars, we are at 7 million. And the idea was basically, when you look at the factory efficiency, right? It helped us to increase efficiency because you're using more tobacco. There's basically no leftovers. It's basically with your food cost in the restaurant. Whereas, you know, if you still use not leftover, but you know, all parts of, be it meat or be it vegetables, your food costs are going down, and the same when you look at production. So that was basically one of the main points that we in 2007 decided, okay, let's try it, because we have been at this time a little bit afraid, saying, okay, maybe it's a little bit like fighting against long filler cigars. But it was quite a normal on the market, and it has been very much liked by our cigar aficionados. Thus having the Dominican one, then the Dominican Maduro, and we thought the same also in our Discovery collection makes sense, that we have the Nicaragua, the Escuya one. Yamasa is missing. So, yes.
Any plans for the Yamasa? you kind of set it up a little bit, Sam.
I was thinking the same. I said, no, there's no plans at the moment. I had the idea already, you know, but yeah, we didn't take it further.
No. In terms of the rolling of Primeros, so they're all handmade, as you mentioned.
Yes.
Are they still made in pairs, or is it just one person rolling it because they're only that small, and you probably get to do a lot more in a day than a normal cigar?
So they're still made in pairs. Very rapidly. I mean, you have to think of a pair doing a Robusto. When they're very quick, they can do up to 450, 500 Robusto a day. Primeros, they do much more. And I can show you, I hope it's working. I can show you this video. I hope you can see it.
Oh, yeah.
So basically, I have to go. You see that also on the right, there is a sifter where she puts first the tobacco over. Look what she's doing now to clean it again.
Like sift it.
She's placing, here you can see what I think is interesting. She's placing this little medium filler leaf in the filler part now. You see, she's placing a little half a leaf in the middle part of the cigar, and where then she puts on the short filler tobacco. Now she's doing this, why? Because if you wouldn't have this half leaf, which is qualifying a cigar for medium filler, if you have only short filler, then the cigar might look a little bit bumpy. You know, you have the short filler that is sticking out. There can be parts of missing tobacco. And with this additional leaf in the filler is giving strength to it and also helping the combustion. So you see it's going very quick. She's rolling the binders. She has now the bunch, so binder and filler. And then I can also show you how is the second part done.
These videos were made actually this afternoon in the factory, so hence
yes, exactly.
the quality might not be as great as taking off somebody's phone, but I think it's good to see how they're kind of made. Yes.
So the quality is not the best, but I think it's interesting to see. So now you saw before, we call this the bunch, right? The filler and the wrapper. That's why also the lady before is called the bunchera, the one who's doing the bunch. And now, after the press, the cigar is passed over to the one who's putting the wrapper around. And you can see how quick he's working with the glue, like a long filler cigar, cutting everything in one piece, the wrapper or the head, which is quite difficult. And again, cutting the cigar to the right length, and job done. So you see, it looks quite easy, Roy. I know you tried it as well, but it is.
But not on Primeros, on normal cigars, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's already. I think my hands are a little bit too big to try on Primeros, to be honest.
Yes, so it's difficult, but you see, it goes quick, and also I think it's important that you know that you very much clean also the short filler tobacco, you know, from any dust, from any dirt. That's why you have this sifter on the table, that you put the scrap again on it and make sure that it's very clean when it's used.
Yeah, I've tried rolling Toscanos before.
Okay.
Similar fiddly work, and yeah, I guess it's not my calling. I can tell you that.
You're better in the smoking.
That's for sure. That's for sure. As you kind of mentioned at the beginning, so the process is very similar to making a long filler cigar. So we know that the fermentation is the same, the aging is the same, and just the shredded tobacco just to call it that, the short filler tobacco. How do they select those? Because now there's normally quite a selection process for binder, filler, and wrapper. Is there a selection process for the short filler tobacco?
Yes, absolutely. We have the same. So you have to imagine when you start rolling at 7 o'clock in the morning. That's normally when our cigar rollers they start working. You basically you get a piece of paper where it says, okay, today you are going to craft, I don't know, the Davidoff Special R. You have the recipe with you because it's very important that our rollers do know what they roll, which is not always the case in different other cigar factories. They have the recipe. They know, okay, today we're going to roll 450 cigars. They get their tobacco. They go to their tables in pairs and they start rolling the cigars. And basically it's the same with the Primeros. Primeros, we do assemble the tobacco based on the scrap. What I said before, it's maybe a bit more difficult to stay consistent because you need exactly to have the portions of each long filler cigar to make the blend. And then it's the same. You basically get the short filler tobacco, or called scrap in the cigar language, and then basically you start rolling. You have your half leaf that you put in the filler. You have your binder, your wrapper leaf, and then basically it's the same process as long filler cigars. The same amount of quality process steps applied, yes. So that's what I always think. It's a very nice taste glimpse of what to expect from the long filler cigars. Of course, they're burning a bit faster because it's a medium filler.
Short filler tobacco, yeah.
Exactly, but I think at the same time, I think you get a really good taste of the core line of Davidoff.
Yeah. Russ had a question because we know that they get rolled by the same people technically as do long filler cigars. And he said all measurements seem to be done by the eye. So how long would it take to master that? I think what he means, the amount of tobacco you have to put into to a cigar. So how long does it take to?
So basically, this is all about, and I'm always so impressed when I'm at the factory and I look at them, how they work with the hands and what exactly they know which amount of tobacco putting in there. We had in the past, we had the cigar rolling school in our factory, whereas we recruited future cigar rollers, and basically it took them up to 3 to 4 months until they got the feeling of rolling a cigar, got the feeling of how much tobacco to put in one hand that goes into the filler, depending on the rim gauge. And after 4 years, then, you know, we letting them start with let's say our bundled cigars, then they move on to private stock. So basically they climb up the pyramid until around 10 to 12, 13 years of experience, they can then start with Davidoff. And it's always great, you know, to also those who maybe only roll long filler cigars to change them a little bit the task of doing medium filler cigars, which also helping them again to know how to do this. And I think it's also a great little change for them. And yeah, so I would say, just to answer the question, I would say it really 4 months minimum. And here I'm talking like every day, 5 days a week, that you're basically rolling cigars, and you're always supervised by the supervisor. If you have any questions or you don't really know how to maybe close the cigar, how to roll it properly with the wrapper. So yes.
So is there a specific team to make Primeros? Are they done by less experienced people or more experienced people? But normally to work in the Davidoff factory, I think you need to have worked 10 years as a roller.
Minimum, exactly. Minimum, I would say 12 to 13 years. And basically that's the same with the Primeros, you know, so you have to, it's also kind of, you know, for us internally not to say, oh, he's rolling only Primeros, you know, because we want to keep up also the quality internally, that those rolling the Primeros are the same rolling also the long filler cigars to again guarantee the quality of those cigars.
Yeah. I think Roy Hilson has an interesting question. So he's a 19-year-old studying business management.
Yes.
How do you all think I could get into the cigar industry?
I mean, smoking or working?
Well,
they let me in.
Both, probably, yeah. I think I think they go hand in hand. I think from my perspective, just to give an example, I was in Nicaragua in December and part of January, and I met a Belgian guy called Benoit, and he was around your age actually when he also was studying business management. He finished it, and he was really interested in the cigar industry, and he wanted to find out more about it. So what he did, he emailed a lot of cigar companies in Nicaragua and Dominican Republic to see if he could do kind of an internship in any of the companies. He didn't speak English, he didn't speak Spanish, just French. And at some point, somebody gave him a chance in Nicaragua, and he did an internship for 6 months. Obviously, had to learn Spanish quickly, and they said, "Okay, we'll give you all the opportunity. We'll give you a 6-month unpaid internship, and we'll teach you everything." And now, currently, so that was 5-6 years ago. He did that. They offered him a job after the 6 months, and now he grows tobacco exclusively for Oliver. So he's done pretty well for himself.
Yes, that's good. I think if you have passion already for the cigars, being 19, which was basically the same age when I started a little bit younger with enjoying cigars, but if you have the passion for the cigars and for this lovely product of nature, I think that's already half the mile. And basically, I would just try and apply out there. Write your CV the same. I did it the same. I remember I wrote in my cover letter that I really enjoy a cigar with a whiskey, my Chesterfield so far, but I didn't know if this would work out, but it did. So it's all about this passion. It's all about this being also bon vivant, knowing the good things in life, being gastronomy or lifestyle, wine, whiskey, and I think this is helping, and it's just, I can say it's a fun industry to work in.
I think both myself and Sam, we're both from hospitality background. That's kind of how we started our careers, and then we're both lucky enough to roll into the cigar industry. So that's another route you can take. I think very important is to be able to pick up flavors and be confident when you talk about what you're passionate about. So I think those are our main things to take away, probably.
Yes.
We had another question from John. He's talking about the changes in flavor. So as the cigar burns down, is it manufactured purposely, or is it a natural occurrence, the changes in flavor?
That basically the flavor is changing during the cigar, right?
Yeah.
So what we try, I think it's a little bit both, right? Because it's a way of how you build or craft the cigar. Mainly, if you look at it, when I explain from the long filler cigars, you take the entire leaf, but always the tip of the leaf is where you have most nicotine, where strongest part. So what we do, we take the leaf, we take off the tip of the leaf and put it at the back to make it really consistent in terms of taste. But then it's normal that when you are in the first third, second third, or last third, there is an evolution in the cigar. This is absolutely normal. You have to think of when you enjoy a cigar at the beginning, and you are there's always smoke coming through the channels, the air channels, and basically always the last part is absorbing some of the aromas from the smoke. So it's normal that the cigar versus the end gets more intense when it comes to these parts. And I believe it's also in terms of quality of tobacco, but also your expertise of blending, because if you do a cigar that is too strong, you can't really filter out the flavors, and it might get very harsh or bitter at the end. Whereas when you really balance out the cigar well and using well-aged tobaccos, then you get this evolution in cigar, which is very much liked by a lot of cigar enthusiasts.
So talking a bit about kind of linking into to the flavor aspect of it. So how does the tobacco really get its flavor? Also, the tobacco is grown, the soil has an input, the sun has an input, etc. And the curing has an input, and probably then the fermentation is where the majority of it happens. And then you have the second fermentation, where you kind of bring back the flavors which you can maybe lose during storage. So can you talk us through that entire process?
Yes, so basically you explained a little bit in the fast track, but yes, so basically you have to imagine is a little bit with the wine growing that first, obviously the terroir has a big impact on the taste of the tobacco. You have to imagine if you have more hours of sunshine, the plant, the tobacco leaf can do more photosynthesis, is growing a little bit thicker in structure, gets a little bit more oily. If you have, for example, a lot of shade, you know, when you see these shade-grown tobacco fields, the cigar actually, the plant is always looking for the sun. It's growing larger, bigger. The leaves are bigger, more shiny, especially used for wrapper leaves. But then it comes, like, for example, climatic conditions, being it the wind. If you have a lot of wind, also the leaves, they turn thicker. The same when, for example, you have a lot of rain, the plant can't really absorb all the nutritions in the earth, and therefore the tobacco gets a little bit lighter. Now, as you said, right after let's say the growing on the field, it comes the first curation, whereas we take the green tobacco leaf, we hang it in our curing barns for 45 days, and that's actually where the cigar, the leaf from the green color turns yellowish and turns into this nice brown color, losing a lot of water, but building up the first flavors, the first aromas in the tobacco leaf. After this, it goes to fermentation, whereas this depends on the tobacco. If you have thicker tobacco, it takes a little bit longer, can take up to 12 months. If you have lighter tobacco, it's up to 3 months, and always turning or changing those tobacco piles when the temperature in the middle is reached about 50 degrees. And it's basically fermentation, the combination of the heat, and it's always water. So we always water the tobacco, but not just by hand. We have these rooms where we put the whole stack in there, and it gets equally watered, which is very important. And fermentation, by the way, is a very important step to make sure that the cigar is evenly balanced and no harshness to it. And after the first fermentation, the tobacco goes to sleep for 2 to 3 years. And you have the second fermentation to wake him up, giving again these flavors. Then it can be that it goes again for aging up to 10, 15 years, or we're using it directly for our cigar rollers. And basically those flavors, aromas, it's each. So we talk about 170 process steps for one cigar, and each step is really important or is crucial for the end result and for the flavors. So it's interesting, and it's really like the wine. You know, we have 15 different microzones in Dominican Republic, and if you have, for example, zone number 14, which is called Tamaragua, gives a bit sweeter tobacco because there's more sunshine, there's less forest, less protection. But you have other zones like number 7, our Ricome zone, which gives a little bit stronger tobacco, not as sweet. And so it's really with the wine, a different area gives you a different tobacco and different taste profiles. And then, of course, should mention at the beginning the different seeds. So we have over 80 different seeds that we created by ourselves. Can be pure seeds or hybrids, like with the wine world. And also each new seed gives you a new variety and gives you a new taste profile. And thus always for us important that we keep on innovating, keep on creating new seeds, new tobacco variety to provide you new taste experiences.
Greg had a quick follow-up question. So what does the resting do for the flavor of the tobacco?
Mm-hmm. The resting is important, that basically the tobacco can settle down a bit, right? So it takes its time, and you know, in Dominican Republic you have a natural humidity. Still also in the aging rooms, it's temperature and also the humidity is controlled. And basically the resting is really giving like putting the tobacco more homogeneous, I would call it. You know, the flavors, they can develop nicer. You know that also the tobacco will be at its summum, this depending on the years. And here our master blender, he's basically, you have to imagine, you have all these different tobacco varieties. There is a name on the bale when it's aged. There is the grade of the grade, be the Seco, be it the Visus or Ligero, written on it, and the year of the harvest. And basically you try every day, how is this tobacco aging? Is it now perfect to be used? And so on, you know, and this is really very difficult. You have to have a fantastic palate, but at the same time it's super important. So we're not working with any how you call this, laboratories. Yeah, laboratories. It's all made by humans, right? Tasting this cigar year by year, and also the final blend. That's why we are so proud of our consistency. That year after year we are consistent when it comes to the cigar. It's not like basically with the wine world, whereas each year is a different taste, right? So we always try to be consistent all along.
Demetrius is asking, to cope with global demand, is cigar rolling a Davidoff a 24/7, 365 days a year job, or is it more like a 9-to-5 office job?
Rolling cigars, you mean?
Yeah.
Rolling cigars, it's all about working. So we have actually, I heard COVID, so we have been the first factory that basically opened after the pandemic, and we have been visited by, in the Dominican Republic, there's everybody visiting you from the military, from the government, and we kept the strict regulations in place. But cigar rolling is purely, it's all craftsmanship all day long. If you look at other functions, for example, in the factory, for example, master blending has some hours in the office because you need to go over the blends. We have since 2000, we have a list of all blends that we did. You have to invent new blends. You have to create this inspiration, and also follow up on internal emails. So I would say master blending requires, I would say, a 30% of office job. Whereas when you're then the vice president of the factory, and it's mainly office. Of course, you're doing your tours in the factory, but it's mainly office work. Yes, and even representing our company in the Dominican Republic and so on. Yes.
Yeah, people do get days off. That's
yeah, you do get days off. That's true. So
I think the only thing, which is a 365 day operation a year is the fermentation process. If I'm correct, yeah, because as Sam explained earlier, now once it reaches 50 degrees, they need to restack the pinot. So therefore, it's quite important that we do it at the right time to make sure that we keep the process in the best condition.
Yes, fermentation is done basically every day, because we need to be always, let's say, a step ahead to know exactly when is the right moment to stop it. But mainly everybody is Saturday, Sunday off. And then what Dominicans love to do is party on a Sunday. So sometimes on Monday morning they start a bit later. But since they are paid by Cigars, it's basically their choice, if they want to roll, let's say, only 200 or more. But this is kind of normal, but I have to say it's always cigar rollers starting at 7 o'clock. Then they have a 3/4 of a break during lunch, whereas we have a nice laguna at the factory where they can sit outside and eat and talk, and then basically they work again until 4-ish o'clock, or if they want to work longer, no problem. And then we have also organized transportation for them to bring home, and yes. We have a medical at the factory, planning to have also daycare, and yeah, there are a lot of benefits being employees, socially covered, and not only the employee, but also the whole family, which is important. Yes.
Stu with another question. What does Maduro mean?
Maduro is basically referred to the color. There is. It's always this discussion, how many different colors are out there. I would say, to make it short, it's over 70 different colors of the wrapper, starting from claro, or even candela cold. It's really greenish, where you stop basically fermentation, until maduro, or even sometimes it's called oscuro. So maduro is basically referring to the very brown color of the leaf, but also maduro, you can compare it to the world of wines, whereas, for example, a Sauterne, or when you leave the wine a bit longer out there, you don't harvest it as quick. And also for the Maduro, you have an extra fermentation. It takes way longer. There are more process steps included, so you have to turn the pile more often. It's very delicate to see when is Maduro, or when is it over matured. So Maduro, basically translated from Spanish, it's called matured. And yes, so this is all about the Maduro, which is kind of interesting. I mean the cigars have been highly popular, I would say 5 to 7 years ago, especially in Asia. We're selling a lot of Maduro cigars, but then it left a little bit the market, but I have the feeling it's coming back again.
Ellen Chester had a question about the different kinds of cuts of a cigar. And the question is, should the cigar designer, or the master blender in this case, think about a particular cut when he's creating a cigar, or doesn't not really come into effect?
Cut, you mean by the grades of
No, the cut of the cigar, so a V cut, straight cut.
Okay. Well, to be honest, when our master blenders, they don't pay too much attention to this. They normally cut the cigar straight with a double blade cutter. Sometimes they also use the punch cutter, but then with the V cut, I haven't seen that often, and I think it's often discussed, and I think it's an interesting question. It's often discussed among our cigar lovers, like what is the cut? How is it changing the cigar? I don't know where you can jump in there. For me, it's basically I'm always cutting the cigar with a double blade cutter. Why? Because I like when the opening is a bit wider, you get a little bit more smoke. I have a feeling you get a little bit more presence of the cigar, of the flavors. But also punching the cigar, is nothing wrong with it. I mean there is no right and no wrong. Also, when I get asked about the V cut, I mean, if this is your preference of how to enjoy a cigar, even Zeno, he always said, do it. It's your preference. You feel well with it, then do it. I think there's no right and wrong. Of course, you see sometimes, people doing with the finger, especially when you are in cigar countries. It's also a way of doing it. It's not so proper, but it's working. But I think whatever you do, the quality of cutting the cigar has to be high. So meaning that sharp blades, also in the V cut, and that you're not damaging the wrapper, not unwrapping the cigar. I think that's more important than which tool you're using. What do you think, Roy? You also you experienced.
Yeah, I think I most of the time I use a straight cut in most cigars. Just with Figurados, I tend to V cut normally one side and straight cut the other side, as you mentioned, kind of just to open it up a little bit more, depending on the cigar, I guess. But yeah, especially with the short perfecto, for example, because that's very narrow. Or with the Salomones, just to let it open up a little bit. So yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, so it's all personal preference, as Anthony just wrote. I think you're more on the V cut. Perfect. I mean, maybe you want to explain why the V cut, or you think it's changing versus straight cut?
I think for me, and obviously with a straight cut, you get that surface area, but for a V cut, I feel like you get a little bit more surface area if you were to open that whole circumference out. And when I'm trying to establish flavors for videos and things like that, it just gives me that opportunity to really pinpoint them a little bit more. And it's also, and it's very much dependent on the cigar. Anything under a kind of petite Corona, I would go straight cut. Anything upwards, I'd go for V cut, just in terms of you're cutting into the cigar a little bit too much than you would with a normal thing like that.
Okay. Great, thank you.
I'll tell you my opinion.
Yes.
Anyone should do any cut they want and they're happy with. But I learned from Simon Chase, the late great Simon Chase, and he told me no one should ever use a V cut because the concentration of flavors is completely wrong. It goes to the sides of the head of the cigar, and the expression of flavor is completely incorrect for the cigar. So consequently, I've never used a V cut, never would. I only use a straight cut guillotine, double bladed ideally. I don't even like punch cuts because I think a lot of people use the wrong aperture punch on the head of the cigar. So again, they've got the same problem as a V cut, too much concentration of the flavors stuck on the sides of the head of the cigar. But whatever anyone's comfortable with, I think V cutters have come back in fashion. I mean, they were around, I think, in the 1930s when we were basically smoking very different sized cigars. And I think it's just become a fashionable thing because you can make it look funny and you can do it both ways. But I tell you, I've never known any cigar connoisseur use a V cut in the last quarter of a century. And I'd be very interested to hear what Edward's view is on that, because he's been around a little bit longer than me. So he might have an interesting point of view that may disagree with me.
Well, I absolutely agree with you, Mitch. To me, a cigar has to be a straight cut, and I always cut my cigars like that. And what you said is very true. Everybody should enjoy the cigar the way they enjoy it. Having said that, Eddie sitting next to me, he's exactly the opposite. He not only gives a V cut, but he gives a double V cut. So here you are. You know?
Oh, dear. Back to cigar school, Eddie.
I guess why a lot of people use a V cut maybe is also because most V cutters, they're quite idiot proof. No, you can't cut off too much of your cigar.
Well, you can. Why would you say that? You can.
No, I mean, no, with a straight cut, if you cut it too deep,
yeah.
If you cut it too deep, then it starts unraveling. With a V cut, it's designed that it will stop at a certain point, so it prevents from unraveling.
But you could, no, I mean, I think it's very easy to mash a head with a V cut.
Mm.
You try it a few times. Have you tried it? I have tried it. It's very, very easy to mash the head, and then you're done. You've got a whole big mess of the cigar.
Yeah.
Well, I'll get off my cutter soapbox now.
I've got a question from Russ. So which Primero is the best selling out of the 5?
It's the Dominican one, the classic Dominican one. Yes. Why I think it's just because it's a bit lighter in taste. You know, it's more easy to enjoy. It's not very complicated, and this is the most selling. Is also when you look at our cigarillos, for example, the gold one is also the most selling one. Yes, so it's the Dominican one.
Okay.
Actually, what are some of the flavors you guys are picking up? I'm now enjoying the Escuyo.
Same here. Yeah.
And you can see the nice change from let's say more this creamy woody flavors in the Primero Dominican, and now you get more the spiciness, a little bit of sweetness in it, kind of like long filler cigars. I'm actually enjoying it a lot.
I'm sure Mitchell won't be smoking the Escurio at the moment.
No, for me, thanks, Roy. But I was quite fascinated. Did I hear you correctly that you make 2 million Primeros and 9 million long filler cigars?
Yeah, 7 million and 2 million. Yes, 7
million and 2 million. That's amazing because I smoke about 10 million a year alone. So
great. We should invite you to come to our factory once again.
I look forward to it.
So if we have people picking up different flavors, just put them in the chat box, and we'll call them out a little bit later. Angelo had a question about the curing side of things. Do they use a traditional air curing, or is it more of a controlled air curing?
We have now a bit both. So in our modernized curing barns, for example, in Yamasa, we have more control over it. Whereas we you know, so basically maybe to explain, the curing is very important that you have the right temperature and the right humidity. You know, the curing barns are out on the fields, so it's not basically protected. They're made out of wood. And basically, so when it's a lot of raining outside, you have to close the windows to not let too much humidity inside. When it's colder, you do a fire inside to keep up the temperature. And when it's quite dry outside, you put a little of water in the curing barns, you open, and then basically to increase the humidity. And this is very crucial for the tobacco, because if you put it too moisture, you will see it's just not fermenting properly. And that's very important. So we do have a bit more control in Yamasa, but all of the other curing barns, I'm talking here about currently 55 different curing barns that we have, or basically that we're working with farmers. They not all belong to us. Maybe that's also interesting how does it work. So basically, if you are a tobacco farmer in the Dominican Republic and you're working for us, we make sure that you get most of the money. How we do this? By investing in your curing barns, because the better the curing barns, the better your tobacco, and for more money you can sell it. And for us, even better, because maybe we can get more binders from a tobacco plant, which is in price more expensive, and maybe we need a lot of binders to be used. And that's why we have our tobacco farmers are working since years and years and years with us. And we always try to help them, because we have I mean, we very much depend on them, that they deliver us the great quality tobacco that we are known for.
I've got a question which is maybe a tricky one to answer. Davidoff has not won Cigar Aficionado Cigar of the Year yet. It is quite astonishing. Is there a reason for this?
Mm-hmm. Yes, so Cigar Aficionado, I hope there's nobody from Cigar Aficionado there. It's a bit tricky, you know. I mean, there is like, so we have been very close to them with Marvin. Marvin was also a great friend of Arvo, you know. And we have been close to them. We got the good ratings. We got third best cigar of the year with that of Nicaragua in 2013. But to put it short, since we basically stopped investing or buying advertisings, we have been nowhere in their top 25 and not even close to be cigar of the year. So I don't want to say anything bad about it, but they're always a little bit the same who are in the top 5. So yes.
That's what I said. It's a bit of a tricky one. It was quite funny. I had a conversation about this with Nestor Plasencia recently when I was over there, and it was the day before they announced the Cigar Aficionado Cigar of the Year, and a lot of people thought that he would win Cigar of the Year, and he said a similar thing. It was, no, I'm 100% sure I won't win it because we don't advertise in Cigar Aficionado.
Yes.
There's a lot of publications out there, especially in the US. In Europe, is Cigar Journal, which is the leading one, and they do blind tastings, and then normally we fare quite well with those. And even in the US, there's a lot of kind of blogs and these type of kind of media outlets which do the same thing. They do blind tests, and normally we do quite well. But you know, everybody has a different taste in the end. And,
absolutely.
You can't always be on top on every list. You know, I think the most important thing.
Should have won. Roy, Nestor should have won. Plasencia's cigars are outstanding.
Absolutely.
Unbelievably outstanding blends, first class. He really does deserve to win, and it stinks that he didn't, to be honest.
Yeah, well, he got the Cigar Journal #1, so he was very happy with that, and the team was very happy with that.
True. And I'm for Mitchell, it's absolutely right what you said, because you know, if you look at their tobacco that they have, it's just outstanding tobacco. Now, finally, they put the nice tobacco in a perfect blend. I mean, not now, but since 3 to 4 years. Yes. So I'm very happy for them.
I think he's got the full package, you know. I think his tobacco's outstanding. I think his blending skills are unbelievable, and the cigars are crafted to perfection, you know. And I think the price point's very good. It hits the spot in the market. So, you know, for me, he's a rock star in our business, an absolute rock star.
Yep.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But I prefer Cigar Journal anyway. I think it's a very real magazine. It's very real reporting. They've got really good reporters. You know, I'm not anti Cigar Aficionado. It's a great magazine for what it is, but it's very different. It's more like reading a men's fashion magazine.
Yes.
Whereas when I read Cigar Journal, it's like, this is serious. You know, this is really good articles. But then, you know, Reinhold is a serious Cigar Aficionado.
Absolutely, yeah.
Other guy.
Nathan has a question: if there's plans for a limited release Primeros?
Not yet. But you know what we did with the Winston Churchill one, the Petit Panatella that we had as a limited edition in tins. You had them in the UK, right?
Yeah, they sold like crazy. Paul, you remember? We couldn't get enough of them.
Yes. So that was basically the first, let's say, attempt to do a limited edition out of the medium filler, and it was very well received. So yes, there is certainly ideas around this to create another limited edition.
And you know what was nice about that was that it was a small format. It was a small vitola, so it was very accessible to everybody. You know, an experienced smoker, a novice smoker. It really hit the spot. It was a very clever project, and it was a lovely little smoke.
Thank you.
It was quite strong for such a small format. You know, it really packed a punch.
Yes,
I found. Yeah.
Yes.
Stu was asking, will there ever be an Escudo Maduro? In Nicaragua Maduro, Dominican Maduro.
Not if I have anything to do with it.
For the moment, there's not planned to have a Maduro in Escudo, no.
Sorry.
No. We get some people now picking up flavors of the different cigars. So Cameron Young, who just moved to the UK a couple of months ago, I believe, he's getting marzipan from the final third of the Dominican Maduro.
Yeah.
Paul says he loves the Escurio, but the Dominican Maduro is really nice. The Escurio is fantastic. Sorry, Mitchell, I'm not making it up. I had many of the Robustos.
I'm breaking out in sweat now.
It's
like the V cutter, you know. Escurio is a blend that, as you know, I particularly do not like.
No, I know,
but that's very personal to me because I don't like strong cigars and I don't like the zingy quality on the palate of Escurio. I like full flavored cigars, but I like light to medium strength cigars. So, you know, joking aside, anyone that enjoys Escurio, good for you. It's just really not for me, as I may have mentioned.
Cameron had another question. So do you see the same? I think he's linking it into to the Primeros question, which was the best selling. So do you see the same pattern in the long filler cigars? Is there more demand for the lighter Davidoff blends? I think we can probably say safely that is the case. I think traditionally Davidoff was always kind of a cigar brand which was on the lighter side till we kind of brought out the Discovery range. So yeah, I think the lighter Davidoff blends are still the signature range is still probably the best selling in the world.
Yes, so all our white band collection is still, let's say, #1 selling, and our most sold cigar is still the Davidoff 2000, the nice Corona format, and then followed by the Davidoff #2. So basically, those classical cigars that are still like very much loved by the cigar enthusiasts out there. Yes.
And some more people picking up flavors. So Rodolfo, he's getting beautiful honey sweetness and cinnamon spice on the Dominican.
Mm-hmm.
And then Paul Chambers seems to agree with that. I'm just trying to scroll down. There's cinnamon from Dominican. And a lot of people commenting on Cigar Aficionado about the advertising side of things.
Roy?
Yeah.
Do you want to just make mention to the couple of Davidoff limited editions that are coming out later this month? The limited edition 21. We don't need to go into too much detail because we're going to be doing a virtual Herf with that cigar. And also the Year of the Ox, which is on the horizon as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Let me just scroll through. Sam, if you want to take that question. So I guess we'll start with the Year of the Ox, which was released a couple of months ago.
Yes. So as we started with Year of the Snake back then, now with the Year of the Ox. So we continue every year to launch limited edition under the Chinese Zodiac, which are getting very popular. I mean, they're already popular, but when I see the numbers for the next one, which will be you have now the Ox, but then there is the
Tiger
coming in November, December. Then we have now shortly is coming the new Winston Churchill limited edition, whereas I'm very excited for this one. We have a new line coming out, or basically 2 new lines coming out. So this year is a big one for us as being a company. And then we have always some very small, let's say, limited editions. You have the Davidoff exclusives that we do globally, but then we have also something called like small batches, master blender selection, that sometimes we release them depending on how is the market, what is the need for it. So we very much monitor the market, and also feedback from our consumers are very important. What is like, what is not like. And so there's a lot of things happening this year.
Can you go in a bit more detail about the Winston Churchill limited edition, about the flavor profile and the blend?
Yes, of course. So the Winston Churchill, what I love about it's always linked to the man himself. So Winston Churchill, I think the biggest cigar aficionado out there, or was out there. And also, we link it to his person, to his character. Meaning that so Winston Churchill was a statesman, he was an aristocrat, he was a writer, he was a painter, and he had all these different facets. And what we did in the blending is we tried to represent each facet in the blend, and that's why we're using 4 different origin tobaccos in the blend. to really mainly that each origin is basically representing a different facet of Sir Winston Churchill. Then basically, so we launched the line newly in 2015, and one and a half year later we came with the late hour, whereas we have the tobacco fermented in the whiskey cask. And now with the limited edition, that's why I'm explaining all this. It's basically, you know, we can play with let's say the original line and the late hour, and always when it comes to limited editions, we try to basically please the original Winston Churchill cigar lover and the late hour one, and that's why we keep on focusing on the blend with different origins. So especially for the 2021 edition, the format is beautiful. It's a Toro format in a 52 ring gauge, 6-inch long, and then basically filler Dominican Republic, and you have one Esteli Visus from Nicaragua. You have a Dominican binder and Ecuadorian wrapper. So normally you would have a Mexican binder on Winston Churchill, but this time we changed it to a nice hybrid from Dominican Republic, and basically giving you this complexity of flavors without overpowering your palate. I think that's the beauty of Winston Churchill cigars, and that's why they're doing so well, especially the late hour. I don't know, when are you launching it, Roy?
In a couple of weeks' time. Yeah, we're just waiting for the stock to arrive.
Yeah, the virtual Herf is on the 18th of March. The virtual Herf is on the 18th of March. It is listed online, but it's only available for pre-order at the moment. I think stock is 2 or 3 weeks away.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Dan, we absolutely love Winston Churchill late hour. I would say almost every time Paul and I get together, we'll have a smoke of them. They're absolutely outstanding. My partner Ron loves them as well. That's a fantastic blended cigar. So that was a home run, absolutely brilliant. But there's another great cigar we hope coming out this year. It's the second Alternate Selection Davidoff limited edition.
Yeah, that will be June time. Yeah.
Excellent, can't wait.
Yeah. There was another question from Dimitris. So what's the biggest market for Davidoff today? Which we can safely say is probably the US.
Yes.
And which markets do you feel has the greatest potential in the next 5 years? Which probably, as for most things, there'll probably be China. unless you have a different opinion of that, Sam.
No. There is a huge potential, but it's all regulated by government. So you have to imagine that we have only a certain number of SKUs listed in whole mainland China. Hong Kong is different. Hong Kong is doing great. So China is a bit complicated. It's called the STMA, which is the official governance deciding on how many SKUs you can have. And basically, it's also a little bit political because the Dominican Republic is still seeing Taiwan as an independent country. So the Chinese are not very happy with the Dominican. On the other hand, Chinese and Cuba are working very closely together. And thus, I think Cuban, they have 6 times the amount of SKUs that we have listed. So there is huge potential. It needs work. It needs daily work. But yes, it's a market that is growing. I think also the Chinese aficionado is growing his taste or his palate, and it's very interesting. But the same also if you look at Europe, there's still a lot of potential in Europe, and I think more and more also younger ones are enjoying cigars. It gets a bit more trendy, and I think it's for the overall industry. It's just doing great at the moment. Yes.
Then a bit more of a personal question for, we'll ask you, and we'll ask Paul and Mitchell as well, and maybe Eddie and Edward to get them involved. What's your favorite Davidoff cigar?
That's a difficult one. For me, it depends a lot on the occasion. So I'm also a big whiskey lover, and I have to, the Winston Churchill late hour is really just brilliant with the whiskey, with the pairings, At the same time, one of my favorites that came out last year was the Medicine 515, which was basically released in a small batch, very limited quantities, but a very, very interesting cigar from my point of view. And then I'm lucky that our master blend Eladio is sending me always his anniversary cigars with a nice ring on it with his face. special, but he likes it, and those are also very, very nice. So I would say late hour, definitely the Medicine 515. And actually now the Winston Churchill is coming out. It's a very pleasurable cigar. I was lucky that I did some sessions already, and very nice. And yeah, so those would be my favorites. What about you, Roy?
The late hour is great. I think my personal favorite is the Nicaragua Diademas. I think that's yeah, I could smoke that every day. Yeah.
Good.
Eddie and Edward.
Oh, that
Mine. I think everybody knows the answer to that. With me, it's the Davidoff number 2.
Yes.
That was my first love of cigars, and you never forget your first love of cigars. And it's a delicious cigar. Going back from the days when it was made in Cuba and when it immigrated to the Dominican Republic, it still stayed my favorite. The size, the shape, and the blend as well. Especially in the last 7, 8, 10 years, it's really delicious. The signature one is beautiful. The 702s. To me, it's the number 2s. If I had to choose one, that would be the one. I also love many other cigars. I'm always ready to try and enjoy a cigar. Every cigar has its time and its place, of course, in the right company. But generally speaking, the number 2 is the one that goes traveling with me. You'll always find a few of the number 2s in the dashboard of my car. So that's the one for me. Eddie's got a different opinion again.
no, not too far off. The 2 I would add to the blend are I think Davidoff execute Perfectos amazingly, and not just the short Perfecto, but the Art Edition 14 and 16 are still Desert Island cigars for me. The Special 53, this is still available, extraordinarily good. And I have to say, Mitchell, the first Orchard Selection Lancero you did, I love that cigar. I absolutely love the Lancero size, and I was so happy to see it appear in a newish Davidoff blending. Please, more of that. It was just amazing.
Thank you. And of course, Edward, the Davidoff number 2 was Zeno's cigar of choice. That was his morning cigar, I believe.
Well, that was the first cigar that I was given. It was by Zeno. I don't even remember how many years ago. It was in the mid-70s. I walked into the Davidoff shop. Before that, I had bought a box of Chateau Yquem, and I smoked it. It was far too strong for my palate, so I walked in there. This time there was an elderly gentleman came up to me. He said, "Can I help you?" I said, "I want a cigar, but I smoked the Chateau Yquem, and it was far too strong for me. I didn't like it." He said, "Well, you should smoke the number 2." He didn't even say number 2. He said, "I've got the right cigar for you." Came back, he cut a cigar, lit it up, and gave it to me. And from that moment on, from the first puff, it's just stayed with me. It's a beautiful cigar.
Not to say that the 40th anniversary for Davidoff London wasn't too bad either.
Well, that's great. That's great. That had a bit of a taste of Eddie in it, because it was blended slightly on the stronger blend, which was wonderful. I mean, it was they managed to capture, Eladio managed to capture both worlds into one cigar, which was beautiful.
Thank you. Paul, how about yourself?
One of my favorite cigars was something that Sam gave me. It must be about 4 years ago. And I think it ended up being a pre-production sampler of the late hour Robusto. We did a training in Liverpool, but at that point in time, it was very quiet. We didn't know what was smoking, but I thought it was a fabulous cigar. And as Mitchell mentioned before, the late hour Churchill has been a favourite that we continue to go back to.
Perfect, thank you. Going back to late hour, kind of links it in quite nicely. Somebody posted on a Davidoff Facebook group this morning, the Davidoff late hour uncut.
Yes.
Yeah, and is it limited to their region, and would it be rolled out in other markets?
So basically, the uncut ones they're mainly used in Asia, and there are many of them. I think while you traveled last year to Asia, you saw
the Escudo and the Yamasa.
Yeah, you have Escudo, Yamasa, you have late hour, you have we had even the Puro Doro one still. So basically, the uncut, we call it uncut, or like some of the Americans do, the shaggy food, call it. Basically, you saw in the video before that basically you cut the cigar to the right length, and here we just leave it. We don't cut it. And the beauty is that at the beginning you only enjoy the filler tobaccos, which is not very harmonious. It can be a little off balance. But then when the bind and wrapper comes in place, you get the feeling of the wrapper leaf coming into play. And I think it's nice, and that's what the Asians especially love about it, is like kind of this gambling on the cigar, because you have two different flavors, you have a quite different taste journey of it, which makes it very interesting. And what I personally think interesting is they don't come in cellophane.
No.
So basically they're not cellophane, and there's always a huge discussion about cellophane, whether should you remove it or keep it on it. But I think if you have those cigars without cellophane, it has a quite different taste to it. Don't ask me why or how, but I just feel it the way. I don't know how you felt the same, right?
Yeah, no, correct. Yeah, I think the beauty of the uncut is that obviously you get to taste the filler and the binder before you taste the wrapper.
Yes.
It's similar as you described earlier with your cutter, just cut off the wrapper at the end of the cigar. And also a shaggy fruit on uncut is probably easier to light because of the shaggy tobacco, so it makes it a lot easier. But yeah, it's nice to pick up those flavors quite differently, and then you get a better progression throughout the cigar. Waldemar has a question, which I could probably answer. He had the pleasure of trying the Davidoff Notables, which was the Puro Doro. That was one of the best cigars. So can I buy it anywhere? Probably unlikely. There's still some places around the world which might have some, but yeah, they're extremely, extremely hard to find. If there were any left, then yeah, they've probably been sold out in the last couple of months, because there were a lot of people hunting for Puro Doro. So.
Yeah, the Notable is a nice format. It's a little bit thicker than a Corona. It has 46 swing gauge, a little bit over 5-inch long. So it is a very nice format. And I don't know if Mitchell or Eddie and Edward has some left. But
I see Eddie smiling in the background, so that's probably a yes.
I have a few packs of the Magnificos left, which is the Robusto size, and yeah, I kept those for myself, if I'm honest. But if anyone wants them, just I'm happy to send one out with my compliments for you to enjoy. It's a cracker, and it's developed so well.
I think you're getting 94 private messages now. I remember we smoked one last year when we did the tasting in your shop for the 40th anniversary for the Rake magazine. I think we smoked it there actually.
And if not, I suggest you go visit Spain. In Spain, you always find old editions, old cigars, and a lot of Puro Doro still.
I've some of these sales guys sometimes send me pictures. So look what I found in the shop. Look what I found in the shop. Yeah, it's quite funny. Rhys Hamilton has a question. What's been the most successful limited edition Davidoff cigar?
Ooh, that's a good question. Now, I would say,
I guess it's difficult to gauge, because how do you gauge it? Because the limited editions have grown in popularity over the last couple of years. Probably in terms of stick sales, the most recent ones have probably sold better than maybe some of the earlier ones.
Yes. So basically, I would say when you look at the quantity, it's definitely the Year of the Ox. For the Year of the Ox, we produce more than 150,000 cigars, which is a lot. You have to imagine that basically a normal limited edition, I would say, is around 50 to 60,000 cigars. So here we had a huge increase for the Year of the Ox. When I look at ratings and feedbacks, the art edition 2014 was very, very well received. Now, last year, also the special 53, we got a lot of top 5 ratings for the top 25 cigars globally. So yeah, I would say Art Edition 214 in terms of taste and ratings and feedback, and then the Ox in terms of quantities.
Yeah, because even for those, we kind of talked about the limited edition 2021, the Winston Churchill already. I know Cigar Journal already rated it, and yeah, it's going to be one of those cigars which have been rated very highly by Cigar Journal as well. So I wouldn't wait too long to try to get your hands on some of them, because they'll go quick. A question from Eddie, which will there be any new Lanceros released in the Discovery or Winston Churchill blends?
If it would be for me, Eddie, I would love to do Lanceros or even Lonsdales, you know. Yes, so I keep on fighting for us. But at the moment, Lancero is well, actually, next year, there might be a good chance for Lancero.
Edward and I will give you an advance order.
Yeah.
John had another question. Are the Nicaraguan cigars rolled in Nicaragua and Dominican in the Dominican Republic, or transferred and rolled in one location factory? All the cigars are Dominican and Nicaraguan are rolled in the Davidoff factory in Santiago, Icome. So yeah, except the Camacho that gets rolled in Honduras.
Yes. Except
for the American barrel aged, which is now delisted, but yeah, those were made in Dominican Republic as well. So we would transfer tobacco from Honduras to Dominican Republic, but the rest is all made in Dominican Republic.
Yes.
What's the reason for withdrawing the 702 line?
For taking out of the market, you mean?
Well, yeah, you kind of or you kind of teased us already a little bit with a new release coming into the market in a few months.
Yes,
I would imagine, yeah.
So the 702 was always designed. It was not like a proper limited edition, but it was always designed to be in market for a certain period of time. At the beginning, we chose 2 years, but then it was so popular that we kept on leaving it in the market. But the problem was a bit that, you know, we haven't been concentrated or focusing so much on it, and then basically you have the sales declining, and you know, being a retailer, you don't have endless space in your humidor. So we said, okay, we take it out, and we introduce now a new line that is coming out soon.
Adrian, maybe it's quite an interesting question. Do you find younger people are enjoying the smaller cigars rather than the larger ring gauges?
That's a good question. I think when it comes to smaller cigars, it's mainly based on the occasion, I would say. But I mean, all of them that I meet when I'm traveling, it's always, you know, you have smaller cigars in your choice of cigars, you have larger cigars. When it comes to larger ring gauge, I would say over 56, you know, it becomes a bit more tricky, because some say, look, over 56 for me, it's too big in ring gauge. I don't enjoy them too much. I stay with the classical, let's say, ring gauges. This I hear often, but a part of this, I think it's always a mix. You know, sometimes, you know, if you enjoy, for example, a short robusto, and still there is a lot of perception that the short robusto, shorter cigar, the lighter it is, you know, the easier to smoke, which is not the case. But having said this, you know, I think it's a mix of both. To be honest, I enjoy smaller cigars, also larger cigars. I think when I have more time, a larger cigars gives you maybe a bit more, I won't call it satisfaction, but it's more an enjoyment. You have more nuances between the thirds, the evolution in the cigar, and it's just a longer time you can spend with you and your cigar, you know. So, but I think it's a mix of both. I mean, yeah.
Not to frighten Eddie, but there's a lot of people who will take you up on your offer, it seems.
I haven't been following the chat, but
yeah, okay.
There's not too many of them left. But just reach out to me anytime. I'm in the shop normally. If I can help, with pleasure.
I think Edward is concerned you might dip into his private stock.
Oh, he's long far done that already. So I've given up objecting to it.
Let's have a look. Bit of a newbie question to Davidoff. Do you do a long fill, small ring gauge, short smoke cigars? So yeah, we do quite a few actually. So we do quite a few Petit Coronas in the Winston Churchill blend, for example. Aniversario. We also do, Antoiato is a very short format. If you look for more medium filler, then we do have two in the Winston Churchill range as well, in the Petit Bellicoso and a Panatella size. And even in the more stronger blends, so the Discovery blend, there's a Petit Churchill in the Yamasa, Shot Corona in the Nicaragua, and a Petit Robusto in the Escudo.
Yes.
And somebody's disagreeing with the Lanceros by the seams of it. Something about Lanceros and his big hands doesn't seem right. So I guess you can't always please everybody.
What is it? See those hands? Must be a giant. We serve everyone at C.Gars Ltd. Giants, anybody, no problem.
Everyone's welcome.
A good question from Ross actually. So he probably heard us pick up on some of the numbers, like the number 2, 2000, 702. So do the numbers have a meaning?
Yeah. So basically 702 is a name of a hybrid that we used as a wrapper. Now the first one was actually called 701 that we used on a Sino Embassy selection. I don't know if you remember those. The Sino Embassy selection, basically limited it from the Sino Classic one in this Bordeaux red wooden boxes. That was the first time we used this hybrid called 701, and then basically we created the number 702. So sometimes the numbers refers to the trials that we used to come up with this hybrid. For example, our wrapper for Millennium is called 151, and it took us really 151 trials, different varieties to come up with the final wrapper. And 702 was not the case. We didn't have 700 trials, but it was just a number that basically we give to the hybrid. So it's the name of the hybrid.
And there's a lot of people who want the late hour Panatella limited edition back. Which I believe is a bit of an issue because of the barrel aged tobacco and then the quantity it needs for limited edition, I guess. So that's a bit of a tricky one.
Yes, but I heard this. I have to say, I heard this more and more the last times in the sessions that a lot of people were requesting these limited edition back. So
yeah, well, it was very popular. I know Nathan, who's on the call, he's been hunting down the shorter ones for the last couple of months. So there's definitely quite a few people who really like that blend. Another question about Puro d'Oro. Is it the same blend of tobacco in Notables and the Magnificos? Or
yes.
Are the blends different?
No, the blends are more or less the same. So basically what we do always when we create a line, so basically you create a line because you have different shapes for different occasions, right? Normally you have a smaller one, medium, and a larger one. And basically the blend is the same. You just adapt it normally a little bit to the wider ring gauge, that we increase a little bit the grade of the leaves in the blend, but it should all stay in the same family, in the same with Puro d'Oro. There are some difference between the grades of the leaves, but the tobacco remains the same.
So the Puro d'Oro, it was delisted at some point, and I guess the Yamasa kind of took over its place to a certain extent. So that's probably the closest to the Puro d'Oro blend.
Yes.
If people are interested in Puro d'Oro, then yeah, if you really like that, then try the Yamasa, and that's probably the closest to it.
Yes.
You might find some in Germany. Actually, I was in Cigar World probably a year and a bit ago. In Düsseldorf, and I managed to find a box of Puro d'Oro there, so they might still have some. The problem now is getting it in from the EU into Europe, unless you actually travel, because a lot of countries don't send to the UK anymore. But then again, we should support local retailers in any case. How do you define competition in the cigar industry? Is it by other brand or by other region? So, for example, Patron or Cuba, or how do you feel that is normally looked at?
You mean competition in general?
Yeah, competition in general. Yeah.
I mean, if competition is always like, let's say, how can I say, like a little bit a stronger word, right? I mean, if you look at whenever you go to Pro Cigar Festival, you know, it's all basically this family coming together. But of course, our main competition might be the Cubans in Europe and Asia. But you know, to be honest, we do follow, of course, what are other manufacturers doing. But we always try to be the leading manufacturer in the industry, you know, which is not easy, because we have explored already so many ways, you know, of crafting cigars, be it barrel aged or be it with different process that we do. Innovation is in our DNA. We always try to keep up the innovation, but I would say it's also a lot of you know, today in social media, you can listen a lot. You see a lot, what do the consumers want, you know, and this is something that we really pick up, you know, what are the consumers wanting, what can we deliver to them in terms of taste, in terms of formats, origins, and I think that we are concentrating more on than, for example, monitoring the competition, what they're doing, because then you're always lacking one step behind, and we always try to be one step ahead. And yes, so I would say it's more about consumers' needs that we try to fulfill than basically looking at competition.
Yeah, I probably agree with that. So from a cigar making perspective, each brand also believes in what they do, and a lot of brands they buy tobacco of other cigar companies. Like,
yes,
for example, we do with Plasencia for some of the Nicaraguan tobacco. You know, I don't think there's a lot of competition maybe between cigar producers. You know, everybody kind of tries to do their own thing, and also tries to learn from one another. So yeah, I think in the cigar world, it's quite amicable in most cases. You know, if you look at the Scores Evening, for example, you know, Mitch and Paul and Eddie and Edward, so I think they've known each other for many years, and I don't think there's any bad blood between the four of them. So that's. I think people focus on what they do and not necessarily really look at what competition does. It's all about believing in your own product.
Yes.
If you were told you could only smoke one final cigar, what would our host choose? So what would be your final cigar, Sam?
My final cigar. Oh my God. To be honest,
it sounds a bit grim, but yeah.
My final cigar, I would choose an Davidoff Dom Perignon, to be honest.
Yeah.
That would be my last. If you tell me my last cigar, that would be it.
I would probably agree with you. Yeah.
I have to plea Eddie and Edward a lot, but maybe I can get one.
Anytime, Sam, but
yeah,
not for many more years to come, I hope.
Yes, thank you.
How about you, Mitchell?
Oh, that's a good question. Probably a 1492 Cuban Tobacco 1492, which was an extremely rare limited edition in 1992. I think there's 501 humidors. It's a Corona Gorda size cigar, and it's the most outrageous smoke I've ever had, and I've been very lucky to have smoked quite a few over a long career in this business. So yeah, that would definitely be my last cigar.
Perfect. Paul, how about you?
My first Cuban cigar that I ever smoked was a Punch Punch, which led me to fall in love with cigars. So I'd go back and smoke the same first cigar that I ever had, being a Punch Punch.
Eddie and Edward?
It will have to be my Davidoff number 2, the original one. The older, the better, probably from the 70s. That would be the last cigar, if I could get my hands on it.
Yeah, I think Sam and I would have to share a box of Dom Perignon.
Make that 3 of us.
Great.
Yeah.
Happy to do this, Eddie.
I hope it's a box of 25, not a box of 10 in that case,
Exactly.
or a pack of 5.
Marwan had another question about Avo Classic Bellicoso. It's making a comeback. Will it be available internationally or just at the US? I believe that's only a US release, actually. It's not coming into the UK.
Yeah, I guess at the moment it's US only. I don't know if you're planning with it, Roy.
Sorry?
You're not.
It was US only. It was a US only.
Yeah.
US only release. Yeah. Daniel has a question about the Escurio. So he's really enjoying the Primeros Escurio. He believes it has Brazilian tobacco inside. So he spent time in Brazil and really enjoyed the Don Flor Mata Fina, which I've never found. Sorry, I can't read the whole sentence.
I think he's saying if there's not, he's not finding a lot of cigars with Brazilian tobacco out there.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, which is true. You know, I mean, we had actually, I don't know, Eddie or Mitchell, if you remember, we had once the Davidoff Brazil.
Yeah, I remember it.
You remember it, Mitchell, right?
My father smoked them years ago. Yeah. Sad. He must have, I don't know, lost his palate for a period of time. I'm really not a fan of Brazilian tobacco. And that's probably why there isn't a lot of Brazilian tobacco and cigars out there, because I don't think there are many fans.
It's very different, you know, when we did the Escurio, you know, it was basically, or let's say when we did the Nicaragua in 2013, there was so many already Nicaraguan cigars out there, and it was like a high benchmark for us, you know, that's why we say we have to do 100% puro cigar to be authentic, right? But with the Escurio, it was more like a pioneering esprit that we took, and there wasn't. I mean, yeah, Filiga does some with Brazilian tobacco, maybe Dannemann with the machine mates, but then a part of this there wasn't many. But Brazilian tobacco was huge in the 70s, 80s, right? In Germany, in the Netherlands, and so on. But now it's hard to find any. But yeah, I mean,
That's quite funny. A couple of months ago, somebody contacted me on Instagram, and he had a box of Davidoff Brazil, but the Davidoff logo wasn't right, and he paid about £2,500 for it.
wow.
Yeah, and she asked me, so have you ever seen it? So I've seen it, but I don't know anything about it. So we actually brought it to Eddie and Edward, and so yeah, it was kind of somebody in Brazil who kind of picked the Davidoff logo, gave a different twist on it, and they were Brazilian tobacco. I think you got Eddie and Edward. You have a box in the shop, I think, as well.
I probably do, but it was basically a fake Davidoff, and it was sold in the airport in Brazil. And then when Dr. Schneider, he heard about it, he put a stop to it, obviously. But in the meantime, some of it had gone out. I've seen a few in the last 7-8 years.
Yeah.
There are a few of them floating around. Somebody must have their hands on it again.
Well, anyway, the gentleman who bought the box, he went back to whoever he bought it from and got his money back, luckily.
Oh, good for him.
A question from Greg. Has dreaded COVID had an effect on sales or production? Well, on production, I know the factory in the Dominican Republic was closed for a little while because we had to make some adaptations to the way the team were working, because they work in pairs. So there had to be some screens in between the rolling pairs. In terms of sales, it probably had a positive effect for the UK market in particular, but I also know in other markets, because people were not allowed to travel, so duty-free is pretty much dead, but it has resulted massively in a big increase in domestic sales. And I'm sure that Eddie and Edward and Mitchell and Paul can confirm that 2020, even though it had a lot of misery with COVID, from a business perspective, it's been a positive.
It's definitely been a positive insofar as people are smoking and drinking dramatically more, and obviously not traveling. So I think they're spoiling themselves at home with another box of cigars or another bottle of whiskey or bottle of gin. So yeah, that's affected business tremendously positively. I saw a question about Brexit, which is interesting. We don't really know the effect. We're hoping that with the trade deals that are agreed outside of Europe, hopefully there won't be any price increases, and that's how it looks at the moment. But product that is shipped through hubs in Europe will be subject to taxation. So I think the industry, our suppliers, are really scrabbling around to reorganize and make sure that product isn't coming through European hubs. So remains to be seen. Hopefully that they'll sort it out and there won't be any price increases.
Yeah, just to kind of tag on to that, there's still a lot of uncertainty about potential import duty. And initially they confirmed at the end of last year the 0% import duty would remain. Then a new document came out which kind of congested that to a certain extent, where products come into the country had to be produced with 30% in the originating country. So for Davidoff, that would be Switzerland or Germany. And then it would occur an additional import duty. And that would then count for Dominican and a lot of Nicaraguan cigars, basically. But yeah, a lot of tobacco instances like ITPAC and businesses like that, they've all put in kind of objections towards HMRC to say, even if it transits through the EU, it should still be 0%. So we're just waiting on an answer from that. So at the moment, getting stock in is proving a little bit more complicated than before. But that's just getting used to what everybody wants at the borders, and hopefully soon that will be more clear to all importers. A question for you, Mitchell, actually, because I know you're a fan of Peruvian tobacco. So Rodolfo had a question. So you heard a lot of chattering about Peruvian tobacco. Any thoughts from the host about Peru? And I know you do the Inca blend, so that's all Peruvian, I believe.
Yeah, we do Inca Secret Blend, which is 100% made in Peru and out of Peruvian tobacco, filler, binder and wrapper. I love the tobacco because it has a very sweet flavor quality, particularly in the wrapper leaf. It's used as filler for various cigars that are out there, I think mainly in the US market, and I think for Davidoff as well.
We use some Peruvian tobacco, yeah.
I think range at one stage. So yeah, I love it. It's absolutely excellent quality tobacco. It's quite low yield to get the real prima leaf. It's quite a low yield, so it's a relatively limited production. But I think the quality of Peruvian tobacco is not only excellent, but it's very distinct from the other tobacco growing regions, which is very nice.
Maybe a question for you, Sam, because we were talking about the fake Davidoff Brazilian earlier. So is there a web tool to check Davidoff boxes' authenticity, like what Habanos offers on their website?
Unfortunately not. We have our own codes on the boxes, which we can internally trace back or see if there is a fake or not. Luckily, we have also with our lawyer, we have rarely seen Davidoff fakes nowadays. But having said this, I just got a case from the US where a guy is selling the oil release Solomonos in a fake, which is quite well done. But you can see it's a fake by looking at the ring, by looking at and everything. But there is no web tool where you can check if it's fake or not.
So basically, if somebody does have the suspicion of something being fake, there's a code behind each box, and you can either contact your retailer, who would then contact probably myself, and we can then check the code to see. It's an entire journey actually from Dominican Republic to where it's been. A question from Paul about our view on pairing cigars with specific spirits, wine, or food. I guess food pairings are always a little bit tricky, maybe, but spirits, that's always a big thing. My recommendation is always to play around yourself a little bit to kind of see what works and what does not work. We always, especially for limited editions, we always try to create a bit of a partnership with what we think would be the best. So the Special 53, for example, came up earlier, and we did a partnership there with the Delmore Cigar Malt, for example. Currently in the UK, with the late hour Robusto Tomatul, they released a cigar malt, and we're doing a pairing with that because that works really well. So, obviously a lot of Nicaragua works really well with Floricana rum, especially the 12-year-old. So there's there's a lot of different things. If you look at wine, the Grand Cru range is kind of made for wine pairings. Maybe Sam, you could tell a little bit more about that and the specifics behind it.
Yeah, I mean, pairing. I always say, pairing is very also kind of individually. But what I always suggest is look at the flavors of the cigar. Look at the flavors of your pairing, be it with your drinks or food is a bit more delicate, but it does work, or it can work, but it's more delicate. But again, I mean, there is plenty. There is port wine, which is a beautiful also pairing with you can be like heterogeneous, where the cigar might be a little bit stronger, spicier, works well with port wine, or where you have the Swedish notes in a cigar with port. I mean, there is plenty of. I'm enjoying, and I have been on the call with Chef Thomas Keller before, and he was talking about Napa Valley and all the wines. So I had to go down in my cellar to take a nice red from Napa Valley, which is also pairing perfectly with the Primeros. So it's basically. It's also trial and error in a very nice way, right? So it's a little bit up to. I mean, there are a lot of things to try. Rum might be a bit easier to pair with than whiskey. Whiskey is more specific. I would suggest whiskeys from Speyside. But there are plenty of opportunities out there, and I think it's. For example, Alan is writing with chocolate. Chocolate is also great. I had the other day. I had a live session with one of the 5-star hotel in Switzerland, and basically the chef made chocolate with the same aromas than the Royal Release cigar by third, and that was super interesting, and it was matching brilliantly the cigars. Yeah.
You kind of mentioned the chef's edition. Yeah, the chef's edition is always created by 5 Michelin star chefs, and that there will be another one later on this year at some point. And that's always a cigar created to be enjoyed with food. They are made by 2-3 Michelin star chefs, and really putting a lot of thought and a lot of creativity into the blending of that cigar, and they're quite involved. Sam sits down with each chef for a considerable period of time to understand their flavor profile and what they like to see in a cigar, and then to get 5 of the top chefs in the world to come together and create a blend. That's very exciting. And I remember the 2018 one was an amazing cigar, and they flew off the shelf as well. So I'm really looking forward to that release later on this year. Rodolfo had a question again about Mexico. So Mexico has shown a lot of support to the UK since Brexit. Would you be interested in seeing more Mexican cigars in the UK? Personally, no, because that could potentially take away from Davidoff sales. But but no, I know there's quite a few Mexican cigars in the market already. I'm not overly familiar with how many different brands of Mexican cigars there are, but Amo is one of them, and Casa Turrent being the other one, which do pretty well in the UK market, and people are getting more familiar with Mexican tobacco. We ourselves use a lot of Mexican, predominantly binders in our cigars, just to add a little bit more spice. So I think once people get to know more about Mexico and tobacco, then we'll probably show more interest in it. But it needs somebody, I guess it needs somebody in the UK to kind of really work for that. For example, for Nicaraguan tobacco, the deputy ambassador for Nicaragua in the UK is a big cigar fan, and he really promotes Nicaraguan tobacco in that sense. And same as the Dominican ambassador, he does his bit as well wherever he can to promote Dominican tobacco. So you kind of need a champion in the country to be able to promote that for them. Patrick from Virtuosity Magazine. What will happen to the new releases this year? Well, we kind of touched base on that a little bit earlier. So the first one to come out will be the Winston Churchill Limited Edition 2021 in Toro, which Sam mentioned earlier already. So that will happen this month, probably in a couple of weeks' time. Then Sam mentioned as well there's going to be a new line up to SKU extension coming into the market. So that will also be later this year. And the Year of the Tiger, and I already kind of gave away the Chef's Edition a little bit. So it's kind of the things you can expect.
No, you said already everything, Roy.
I think that's about it, isn't it? Yeah.
Hello,
but yeah,
Patrick, by the way.
So that's what's happening this year. Mitchell already mentioned that there's going to be an auction selection Davidoff as well in June time. So there's plenty to look forward to, for sure. And you know that Placentia later on this year. The auction selection. But yeah, you know, as Sam mentioned as well, you know, that there always might be something new popping up which we haven't told you about yet. So. Are there more collaborations with other brands in the pipeline? So, for example, Rodolfo liked the back-to-back 2019 collaboration. Well, you probably know more better than me, but I know we did a collaboration with Placentia for the US with the Davidoff Geneva Placentia edition. I'm not sure if there's any more collaborations, Sam, which you know about. I know we got approached by actually, funny enough, by a Mexican cigar producer to do a collaboration, which we decided not to go ahead with. But yeah, I guess there's always interest from other businesses to do something with Davidoff. But yeah, it needs to be the right project for both parties involved.
Yes. In terms of cigars, there are no collaboration now coming. But you know, you don't only have cigars, might also be packaging ones, you know, or more lifestyle, you know. But we definitely also, like, in terms of partnerships, we are always looking to be innovative, you know, doing sessions with different partners, having the same values than we have as a company. So there are plenty of opportunities. But when it comes to cigars, there's nothing planned with a different, let's say, producer or so on.
This could be quite an interesting question about climate change. And the long-term future of the industry, do you think that climate change is going to allow other regions to start growing solid tobacco in the same way as it's done with the wine industry?
It doesn't exist, so don't worry about it.
That was a quick answer. Thank you, Mitchell. Christian Campbell has questioned, can you match cigars with gin? Well, and I know Mitchell is drinking Forest's gin at the moment, so I would say yes. Also, Nick Hammond, he released a cigar gin to Legates, so that could be another one. So yeah, I think the answer to that would be yes. Let's see what else we have.
There was a good question about the VAT import scheme being scrapped and how it will affect shops in London. I don't know if you saw that one on the screen earlier. And I think it's a really good question. And from my perspective, I don't know what Edward and Eddie think. They probably have a much better view than me. But I think it will actually affect all of our stores across the UK, apart from Norfolk, which doesn't really get any foreign visitors that I know of. But all the other locations get tourists from outside of the EU or outside of the UK now. And I think it's a ridiculous thing that the government have scrapped it. Absolutely ridiculous, especially at this time when retail is going to need to recover and, you know, tourists are not going to exactly be flocking back. And this just takes away another reason for them to come back and do their shopping in a big city like Chester or Liverpool or London. And I think it's a crying shame. I really do. I think it's a big mistake.
Absolutely. 100% agree with you, Mitch.
Crazy.
Right. We've done, nearly 2 hours talking about Primeros, talking about cigars, about gin, about everything the wonderful world has to offer. So I think we'll close off the session now. For those of you who don't know, the session has been recorded. So after we close off the session, I will send the link to Paul and Anthony, and it will be up on their YouTube channel somewhere in the next couple of days. So for those who want to look back to some of the answers or the session, you can do it on their YouTube channel. Thank you all for joining. Thank you, Sam, again, as always, for
thank
your
you, thank you, Roy.
knowledge.
Thank you very much.
Participation. Thank you, Eddie and Edward, for joining. I'm sure that Mitchell or Paul would like to have a final word in this all. Thank you again for hosting us.
All you're muted.
Paul, you're mute. Yeah. There's always the beauty of Zoom.
I actually wish I could do that to Paul sometimes.
Yeah, no, thanks again, Roy and Sam. we appreciate the time taking out to host and run these events. As I mentioned at the start of the call, we've got virtual Herfs every fortnight. You can go online. But one of the exciting ones coming up with Davidoff is in 6 weeks' time with the new Davidoff limited edition, which we're pairing with Balvenie. So it's available for pre-sale now, but the stock should be in the country in 2 or 3 weeks' time. And we'll certainly do an email out to everybody that when they become available. But there's many other events there. So thanks a lot to everyone. I think this has been our biggest participation for a virtual Herf that we've done. So hopefully we can see you all for the rest of the year. Thanks, Roy.
Perfect. Thank you all. For those of you, have a great weekend ahead, and I hope to see you all in the next Herf.
Nice to see everybody, all of our regulars, new faces. Sam, thanks as ever. Looking forward to meeting you for a cigar in person in due course when this craziness is over. Roy in the studio, thank you as ever. Edward and Eddie, our guest stars, thanks for joining us. I appreciate it.
Our pleasure. Bye-bye, Roy.
Cheers,
Good night,
guys.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Have a
Bye,
rest of the day.
everyone. See you later.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.